David, when you took over, you talked about kind of being excited to be more involved in the defensive side of the ball. Mark was just in here talking about the sheer variety of stuff you guys have thrown at them, from the different zones to kind of the base stuff with Jokic at the level to drop, whatever variety it may be. What has kind of the process been like in terms of your involvement, kind of situation to situation on some of that stuff, and just sort of the delegation of it as you guys have gone through these 2 rounds?
Yeah, I mean, it's part of my background, so it's not something that's new for me. And obviously, playing teams as good as these teams we've played, optionality is how you survive. So, yeah, we've thrown different things out there. We'll do the same thing today, tinker with things that we thought that worked, react the right way to the way that they spaced the court differently in the second half of Game 4. But, yeah, we have to throw looks at Shea and Jalen that are different after timeouts, start of quarters, all those things. So, yeah, that's something I'm into. You have to be careful. You don't want to go too far where you lose the spirit of your base defense, because your base defense is what gets you here throughout the season. But, that stuff, to slow down the pace of the game a little bit, especially on the road, it goes a long way, I think, in staying in games. And you have to take chances sometimes. And sometimes it looks bad when someone takes a wide open shot because the rotation wasn't correct or whatever it may be. But the same thing happens in man. So, yeah, I think it's part of my background, and also I think the guys have high enough IQ to take in a lot of information with one day in between games, and it's affected the games in a positive way for the most part.
David, throughout Nikola's individual successes, people always say he's the same guy regardless. Do you notice any differences in him when he's going through an uncharacteristically inefficient stretch, or is it still the same joker you get every day?
No, he's been great. The same film session yesterday. Had a lot of opinions. Obviously, he wants to shoot the ball better and be more efficient, just like the rest of our guys. I wouldn't say anybody was efficient in the last game outside of their bench. So, yeah, I mean, it's obviously it's a grind. The playoffs are a grind, and just like the regular season, you're gonna go through ups and downs. And I saw it with him in the Clippers series. It's coming, and he's shorting a lot of his shots, and people are gonna say it's fatigue. I think it's also the ups and downs of how hard this is and playing every other day. But the efficiency, we know it's there. It's inside of him. The defensive rebounding's been great. We just talked about defensively, his levels and pick and rolls. So there's so many things with him that are major positives. You're running your whole offense through him mainly, getting people involved. So, the turnovers have to come down with him and our whole team. And I think the efficiency is going to come with him just because the way he is and how he works daily. It's almost impossible for it not to come back. So he's fine. Our team's fine. 3-game series. So I think everybody's kind of on the same page here. We turned the page from Game 4, put ourselves in a great situation here. So he's excited for the game, as are.
David, I think you guys
grew up in the league, and becoming a head coach was kind of a long time coming, given your background. Did you envision when you became head coach having vets as actively involved as your guys are in the huddles that you've had in the playoffs? Was that part of the vision you had when you took the job over?
I think that's the vision anybody would want to have. You want guys with experience to have opinions. And I feel very secure about that. I know what I'm doing. I know the responsibility I have. But relationships with those guys goes a long way. And instead of just coach speaking at them, it's good to have a conversation about things to try to accomplish a goal. So, no, that's been a major positive. I asked for that when I got the job. Whether that's the short term or the long term, but that's what you want from your guys. And these guys have been through so many experiences. I've said this before. It would be foolish of me not to hear their voices and not to expect them to command some leadership in the huddles. And I mean, these timeouts are like 5 minutes long, man. So I hope they're talking to each other, because if they're not talking to each other, I have no idea. And then we go to the biggest play of the game. It's a minute 10, and they don't talk to each other very much then. So it's No, I'm all for communication with these guys, and it's a good partnership. It's a group that I've known really well for a long time, so that's been a major positive.
David, I think you guys were 0 of 17 from the corners in the last game, and I'm just curious how essential knocking down those shots are, not just to winning, but opening up the floor and making Jokic's life easier.
Yeah, those were great shots too. You look back at them, you can look at all of them. I would say 90% of them were wide open. I've said this before. I can't speak out of both sides of my mouth, and after we miss shots in a game, say, I can't believe you guys didn't drive back into Chet and Shea and Jalen and Isaiah Harden. You know what I mean? It's if we create a great shot, we have to shoot it. And there's a domino effect there. If you make shots, rotations are different, closeouts are different. No different with us. When their bench started to make shots, we had to adjust. That opens up the floor more for their main people. Now you're playing more of a man-based defense. It's more pick-and-roll centric, which is good for Shea. So, yeah, these things, you know, they ebb and flow during a game. And I thought, you know, we've been pushing that. Hey, be confident, shoot the shots that are available. You know, don't get late into the shot clock, because what that turns into is turnovers and runouts. And that's where they, you know, really succeed. So I'm hoping to create the same shots. I'm just hoping that they go down tonight.
David, a lot of people talk about the physical fatigue of these quick turnarounds, but what about the mental preparation fatigue of the quick turnarounds? Is there any impact on that?
Yeah, I think you have to be careful with how much you give them, you know, because you're right. There is, you know, you have a million ideas after you lose a game. It's funny how much easier it is after you win a game to show a film session. Everybody's high-fiving each other. When you lose, you're thinking about what can we do differently, and you have to be careful. You know, you have to toe the line a little bit with how much information you're giving them. Yesterday in the film session was very thematic. Today was very specific with the walkthrough on the court. Because you want to maintain the positives of why it's 2-2, you know, and why you've won games. Not to mention, I have a great team, and these guys have been through it, and they understand how confident they have to be to win these games. And sometimes it's just talking about that again. Hey, you are you. Like, go be you again. So, you know, that's the most important thing tonight for us. Bounce back from a tough loss and be the Denver Nuggets again.
Thank you, Coach.
Yep. Thanks, guys.